All right, welcome to the Sunday speaker meeting here at the Grove. Can we start with a moment of silence, please? I can't. I know. It's a long story. All right, can we do the serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Hi, everybody. My name's Patty. I'm an alcoholic. I was told not to touch the microphone, so that's why I'm just kind of on my tiptoes here. I'm not going to read a lot of stuff here because we all know how this meeting runs. Our speaker will speak for about a half hour, take a little break for cigarette smokers, and then he'll come back and finish up for another whatever, however long it takes. There's a basket going around for the seventh tradition, and I'm going to get right to it and introduce our speaker tonight. He's got over 4 decades of sobriety. I know he's had a big influence on my sobriety, both times. And he's got a great story, a great message, big influence here in Racine, so I am going to cut it short and introduce our speaker, Kurt S.
My name is Kurt Seidel, and I'm an alcoholic. By the grace of God, through the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have not found it necessary to take a drink of alcohol since September 4th, 1980, and for that I'm grateful. I'm going to start off with an apology because, generally speaking, I suck when it comes to this. Hopefully I won't suck that bad. There's 2 things I'm going to tell you about the fact in case you doubt that I'm an alcoholic. By the time I was 18, I was hospitalized for alcoholic gastritis. They didn't call it that, but it was alcoholic gastritis. And the other thing, and this is important, I was delusional. Delusional is going to be important later on. I was studying for my undergraduate degree so I could go on to divinity school. That's what I was doing during the day. At night, I was drinking and doing violence to other human beings, and I didn't see any conflict whatsoever. So I was delusional. One of the things, we're all in different places. How I experience and perceive, and the angle I come at the steps, is layered with almost 44 years worth of experience and sobriety. Not everybody's there. And everybody has a different angle. There's no such thing as one way. There's no such thing as the best angle. What I'd like to do is tell you my story of what I do every single day when I work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and practice these principles in all our affairs. Every morning I wake up and I say please. I say please because I understand that I'm powerless over alcohol and that there is a God and I'm not it. And I am not going to be able to make it through today or any day unless I turn my will and my life over to the care of we'll get it. As God as I understand him. One of the saddest things for me is I sit in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've known a lot of people, I've watched a lot of things over the years. And that is that I know that it's one simple little decision to stay sober. Everybody can do it. Anybody can do it. I did it. And if you knew me, you'd go. But the decision isn't to not drink. The decision that I make every single day is to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. I don't make the decision not to drink. I do that because I understand some things from my own drinking, from my time in Alcoholics Anonymous, that I'm powerless. I'm just as powerless today as the day I was when I walked through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time. I thought I was God. I certainly acted like I was God, but I have come to find out that there is God and I'm not it. I also learned that I was spiritually and morally bankrupt. I'm just as spiritually and morally bankrupt today as I was the day that I walked into the meetings, my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. That doesn't change on a daily basis. Hasn't changed in 43, almost 44 years. So when I make that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him, I've just made a decision. I don't have to go through three frogs on a log. Everybody's heard it. You know what it is. I've just made a decision. And even the big book talks about that. But it's a useless decision if it isn't followed by action. And so the first action I take is 4 and 5. And I'm going to be taking that throughout the day. Because one of the things that I'm going to be thinking about, and I actively think about it, is how am I getting in God's way? What are the things, this is my angle. I'm going to share with you my angle that I use as my baseline. It's not the best. It's not the only one. As we go through the steps, or as I talk about the steps and what's in my mind and how I practice them, there are at least 360 times 360 different angles for you to look at for every step in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. There is no such thing as one is better. There is no such thing as one is right, as long as it always goes back, at least my standard that I was taught, it always goes back to there is a God and I'm not it. So I'm going to be looking for all day long, how am I getting in God's way? Because I did a lot of things that cut me off from a relationship with a power greater than myself. And one of the angles that I look at when I'm thinking about the steps is how have I cut myself off from a power greater than myself? 4 and 5, just like it says in the big book, we have found and been, or made clear of, I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not very good at just remembering the words. All those things that have cut us off from a higher power. As I move into, because every time I cut myself off from a higher power, I'm playing God. And for me to play God, at least for me, is deadly and dangerous to other people. And then 6 and 7, one of the angles. I will use bad behavior. I will talk about those angles, that perspective. Many times I use it because I use many perspectives to understand and talk about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But when I'm working my baseline for the 6 and 7 step and what I'm doing on a daily basis, I have 4 basic character defects that I work off of and the standards that I hold myself to. And one is playing God. The other one is selfishness. We'll get to that, or I'll get to that about me in 8 and 9. But in 6 and 7, there's 2 things that 2 other character defects. That part of me that is so broken. And that is delusion, the lie. For myself, I don't know if anybody else is like that. At least a lot of people I've talked to over the years are like that. We have a lot of different lies. All the different lies that support the idea that I might be God, I might be able to do it, I have the power. I'm better than you, I'm the smartest one in the room, you don't know what you're talking about. Those lies. So I have the delusion, the lies. And the last character defect that I work with on a daily basis, that I hold myself to as a standard, is fear. We talk about fear a lot. But I also think that in that category of that broken character that's in me is also greed. I want more than I deserve. I want more than you have. And I think the nature of the fear, because we talk about it a lot, as in I'm afraid I'm not going to get it. I think the real fear that held me back for all those years is cowardice. I think really what the fear that I work with is the cowardice. The cowardice to really, truly look myself honestly in the face and accept the truths about myself. This is how I'm broken. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I can't do. I can't admit to you that I don't know. I can't look at the dark sides and the truths about myself because I'm too afraid to. And I truly believe for myself that that cowardice, that fear, has held me back in many different areas of my life. And of course, when I get to 8 and 9, I'm selfish. I'm better than you. I deserve more than you. I'm the smartest one in the room. Hopefully you're taking the idea that, these are some of the clues I use to hold myself accountable to how I harmoniously cooperate with my higher power. And then I get to step 10. Continue to take personal inventory. My inventory, not your inventory. Those are my baselines right there. From here on out, this is the new part. My inventory, what am I doing? One of the things that happened to me over the years is, the voices in your head, maybe I'm the only one that has it. But along the way, the different voices got assigned different jobs. Didn't happen all at once. I think the first one was to watch myself. I learned early on, mostly because my sponsor told me, you really should not be let loose amongst decent human beings. This was true. But nobody volunteered to be my babysitter. So early on, there was a lot of watching myself. Greg was very good at telling me what I could not and could do and how I should and shouldn't do it. He told me, you have a bad personality. You really need to be better than what you are. He was correct. Just as an aside, one of the first things was I couldn't do small talk. I didn't want to talk to you. I don't like you or anybody. And I had to practice making small talk. That was one of the many different assignments that he gave me. Because I think I'm better than everybody else. Or I think I'm worse than everybody else. But basically, it's I'm not the same as you. So this is where the new stuff, the living in the moment. I can tell you that at least at the time now that I am now, living in the moment is the only thing that keeps me sane. There comes a certain amount of time when you watch the same things happen over and over again to the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you get a general, there's no way that I would know. But I've watched it so many times, over and over again. So if I just remember that I just have to live in today, because that's all I've got. If I talk to you, we have a good conversation, we have a good conversation. But it doesn't mean anything beyond that conversation. Hopefully it does, but that's not my job. And this is where I have to take my inventory. Where I'm going about all how do I act with you? Going back to that voice. Because there's a few other voices that have jobs too. There's a voice that watches what I do because I need watching. There's the voice that watches what you do, so I don't misinterpret what you're doing. I do a lot of that. I watch that because I want to make sure that I get it right. So I'm taking my inventory. Where am I a coward? Where am I delusional? Where am I playing God? Where do I think I'm better than you? All those different things that I can and do. And then we come to and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. For me, one of the things that I've looked at is, in this island of big ideas, there's 12 big ideas, there's this tiny little chunk that says, and when you're wrong, promptly admitted it. Have you ever thought about that? Why the hell did Bill put in, when you're wrong, promptly admitted it? Well, one of the first things is those 4 things are true about me. I'm wrong. I am not right. I am defective. That was my first admitting when I'm wrong. It's not just about I wait around for me to do something incorrect, because I will do something incorrect and then make an apology for it. But it's about all those different things. Because I just remembered that I just forgot a bunch of stuff from the 8th step that I wanted to tell you about myself. Here's where I start to take responsibility for who I am. Here's where I start to, there's so many different facets to when I'm wrong, promptly admitted it. It's not just about the bad things that I do and apologizing. It's about when I'm not right enough to be around decent human beings. And it's how, people talk a lot about relationships in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. What do you think is one big thing in any kind of successful relationship, regardless of what it is? If you're wrong, promptly admit it. But I think probably the most important thing that I've learned about when I'm wrong, promptly admit it, is you can't change unless you admit you're wrong. We talked a lot about change and, I've done this and I've done that. But at least for me, every time that I've had the opportunity to change my behavior, it starts with, because I'm wrong. That justifiable anger. Notice he didn't say anger. I get angry all the time. I'm not drunk. It's that justifiable anger. I'm right. I have the right to be angry. I have the right for this. I have goals. This is where I'm going to go. All that stuff, all those different me above you, is where I'm wrong. I don't know. I might be angry, but it might not be right. As a matter of fact, generally speaking, when I'm angry, it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. It's a pointless, I am, but there's not much I can do about it. And it's absolutely meaningless. And I think that talking about the responsibility, one of the biggest things that I have noticed about myself, and as I've gotten older in age and in the time I spent in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that I think responsibility is one of those big things about growing up. And it's that scary responsibility that keeps us in cowardice. That's, I don't know the good segue here, that's the point that's important. Because I sit around, and I've done it many times myself, going, this is the best. I'm doing this because this is the best way. This is the only way. This is the right way. I've got to justify it. If I have to justify myself to you, you did this, so I have to do that. If I'm justifying it, I'm not taking responsibility. Even for the simple little things of, this is my opinion. This is what I think is important. You might not have the same opinion. One isn't better than the other. But I need to take responsibility for the fact that this is my opinion. I own this. Which goes back to all that stuff that I forgot to tell you about with me in the 8th and 9th step. Over the years, I've listen to a lot of people talk about, yeah, I paid the money back and all this stuff. My understanding of amends is to put right what I've put wrong. I didn't do a lot of stealing. I did a lot of violence to other people. It's really hard to go back and take back a punch. So, we talk about living amends. We also talk a lot about forgiveness. It's not big on my thing when we talk about forgiveness. I'm always under the impression that when people talk about forgiveness, they want a clean slate. I don't think I should have a clean slate. Because it has my harms that I've done to other people are way, the violence that I did to other people, they were other criminals. I didn't go out and hunt down innocent people to do it. I feel bad about it. I can tell you that in the 43 years that I've been sober, I haven't found it necessary to physically harm another human being. I'm grateful for that too. But the thing about myself is, and I don't know if there's anybody else, it's those other harms that I did. Because on Tuesday, I could look you in the eye and tell you I loved you and build a wonderful future for us together. And then on Wednesday, I can go, fuck you, I got somebody else. How do you ever make amends for that? I don't know. I know what I do today, and that goes back to that responsibility. I take responsibility for it. I really think that that's more scary and brings out more of the cowardice in us, at least in myself, to take responsibility for what I did, because I can't put that right. I don't know how you put that right. An apology is an apology, you can do that, but that didn't put it right. The negative fingerprints that I've left on other people's lives, I try not to do it today, but I can't put it right. And I think it's valuable for me to remember that. I don't think I should have a clean slate. I don't think I'll ever have black ink in my debit column in this lifetime. So I don't think that I should go around with a clean slate. Now, those things as a result of the 8th and 9th step, and that I do, and I remember those things every day. They're important to me because I want to make sure that I don't do something as egregious as that ever again. And so we come back to that jumping ahead because I got old and had a brain fart. That responsibility that I learned to take in step 10. Whether it's at work doing my job, whether it's showing up on time, whether it's actually following through on something that I tell you. I think that responsibility to actually grow up and act like a mature human being is important. And it's one of those things that I think of on a daily, moment-to-moment basis. Step 11, one of the voices is a running conversation with a higher power. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly how crazy I am. I'm fairly certain I don't believe. Doesn't matter. I'm the one that you sit around and you come to if you say that you have a problem with a higher power and you can't work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous or the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I have a problem with my higher power. We do not have a congenial relationship, well, at least from my side. We do not. I am fairly certain I don't believe. Yet on a moment-to-moment basis, there is a running conversation in my head with this higher power, because the step asked me to have a conscious contact with a higher power. That means I understand that as I have to be aware on a moment-to-moment basis that there is a power greater than myself that's out there. Now that I do believe in. There is a higher power. I know that because every morning, for 43 years, I say, please, and every morning, I get to stay sober. So if you tell me that you have a problem with Alcoholics Anonymous because of God, I call bullshit. because it has never asked me to believe anything. It has always told me what to do, and I do that. I am crazy enough. Now, I will tell you one other thing, just from personal experience. Every alcoholic I've ever known that's been sober for any length of time has a crisis of faith. I'm not real comfortable with that word either, but we'll use it. I hope for you that you develop a relationship with a power greater than yourself, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you believe it, whether you don't believe it, a conscious contact, so that it will survive what? Crisis of faith, thank you. The joys of getting old. I've watched myself go from 21 to 65 in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's great. To survive that crisis of faith. That conscious contact is the only thing that has ever saved me. One of the things that it does, there's a lot of talk about, intuition and all this other stuff. And that's fine, it's true. What it's allowed me to do, I pray or talk to a power greater than myself, and I listen. It has allowed me to listen to other people in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Certainly, I hope tonight that you listen to the words that I say and not what you think I'm saying, because that's always a big thing. Are you listening to what I'm saying, or are you listening to what you think I'm saying? I've always found it much easier to communicate with other alcoholics if I listen to what they actually say. And one of the places that I learned that was on a daily basis in the program, in step 11. Then step 12, having had a spiritual experience. I will tell you, and this is one of those things that you, at least from my perspective, that will help you understand my perspective. I think the spiritual experience that Bill had, and the first few AAs when they talk about the mountaintop experience, was they went from believing that there wasn't a God to believing that there was a God. I don't think Bill came down from the mountaintop with the wind blowing through him with 2 stones with 12 steps etched on them, with an understanding of the traditions, any of that. He went from going, not believing in a power greater than himself, to believing that there is a God and he's not it. I believe that there is a God and I'm not it. What the nature of that God is, I don't know. I don't need to know. I don't need to know that in order to have a conscious contact with it, even if I think it might not exist. Because I can tell you that I've gone through a lot of different iterations. Obviously, if I was studying to go on to divinity school, I certainly had a whole different view of my higher power at that particular time when I came into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But the thing that has saved me is the action. So if, hopefully, as we go through this, that you find something useful, I hope you understand that making the decision is just the third step. You haven't done the third step until you do steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Because those steps are the process of turning your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand them. It's not the decision. The decision is a part of it. But if you don't do that every day, at least that's what I was taught. That's my understanding of how the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when I make that decision and say, please, in the morning, I am saying I am powerless, I am spiritually and morally bankrupt. I cannot make it through the day without assistance from a power outside myself that is greater than me. And these steps are the process. It's why people keep talking for years and years about, you've heard them say years and years, Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of action. It's a program of action. Not a program of I like it, not a program of I believe, not a program of this. It's a program of doing. I have yet to have the program let me down on a daily basis. I do it. I don't like it sometimes. I don't want to do it. I don't believe in it. Well, not so much these days, but you know. And it hasn't let me down yet. Now this is also, and having had a spiritual experience, tried to practice these principles in all our affairs. And here's, at least for me on a day-to-day basis, what I understand about practicing it in my affairs, all my affairs. Yes, it's out there in the rest of the world. But in meetings, we talk a lot about learning to love ourselves, learning to forgive, being ready for a relationship. I only know those things because on a day-to-day basis with these steps, I allow my higher power to do for me what I cannot do for myself because I'm powerless. I think that my spiritual condition, you know, we have a daily reprieve based on our spiritual condition. And I believe that my spiritual condition is the same as it was today as it was 43 years ago. That is, I'm powerless. And I'm morally and spiritually bankrupt. Anytime I think I can play God, anytime I think I'm better than you, anytime that I will not walk into the opportunity of carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, not walk into the opportunity of living honestly, not walk into all those different opportunities that every day give me, it's a crapshoot. So although I didn't hit it as much as I thought I would in my head, I want you to understand that my understanding is that I make the decision, but the actions that come with it, come after it, are what complete the decision. And all those things are nice. It's nice to have self-love. It's nice to have, be ready for a relationship. But if I focus on those things, you know, how free do I want to be? How this, I mean, I've heard a lot of these different things over the years. I start thinking that I can move in this direction, which means that I'm in charge again. Which means I've decided what it is, and I've lied to myself thinking that this is what I need to get. We work things out on the spiritual. Those remaining 9 steps, well, 12, but those remaining 9 steps are working it out on the spiritual. Those other things are working it out on the emotional, on the mental. I am incapable of doing it. I am morally and spiritually bankrupt. I am that way today, and if I forget that, I start playing God again. So those are the things that I remember. Those are how I put into practice those steps. That's what's going on in my head every day. It's not the best way. It's not the only way. It's not the right way. It's my way. I'm hoping that in some way telling you what goes on with me on a day-to-day basis for the last 43 years you find useful. Remember, we asked in the 3rd step to be removed or released from the bondage of self. Not to get a new self. The only way I know to get new self is either a traumatic brain injury or lots of LSD till you become a totally different person. I know of some people that has worked out well for, most of them not so much. This way I get released from the bondage of self. When I take each of those steps, when I'm concentrating on those things every day, it allows my higher power to come in and do for me what I cannot do for myself. I was doomed to relive Groundhog's Day every single day when I was drinking. Nothing ever changed. I never got better. I wanted to get better. I didn't get better. But because I have now, with the help of a power greater than me, not me, and the only way I got that power is by making the decision and then doing the actions, I don't have to act that way anymore. So we're at break time, and I do have some other things to say, so you're still going to have to come and listen to me afterwards. So,
Okay, I'm going to welcome back up here Kurt.
one of the other things, because I actually checked into what you guys do on the meetings, so I tried to adjust what I said to that and have sections. Something does happen at the third step. It's just not the end all and be all, at least as I understand it. And I'm going to use an analogy. And no analogy is perfect, but I'm hoping that this will get the ideas across. When I say please, when I've made that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him, I haven't taken any actions yet, but I have made that decision. At that particular time, and this is how I picture it in my mind, I have a spiritual wallet. And at that time, when I say please, $10 appears in my spiritual wallet. And as I go through the day, $1 pays for me to do 4 and 5. It is everything I need. See, one of the things they told me early on, and that's what drives this analogy and the way that I look at the steps and think about the steps and hold myself accountable to the steps, is they told me you will always be successful if you do this. You will never, ever, ever drink again if you do this. But there's always the if you do this. And, I was talking about my spiritual condition. I believe that my spiritual condition is that I'm powerless and I'm spiritually and morally bankrupt. I can't get through the day without that power. So that $10 appears. And that dollar is exactly what I need to pay the price, the spiritual power, to do 4 and 5, because of myself, I can't do it. The next dollar pays for 6 and 7. To know, understand, take responsibility for, accept to my innermost self, or admit to my innermost self, the true, broken, defective character that I have. The next dollar, 8 and 9, I'm not going to get too specific because you're going to see a pattern here if you haven't already. 10, 11, and 12. But that spiritual wallet only holds that $10 for that 24 hours. I don't get to bank any. If I don't use all those spiritual dollars today, they don't accumulate for tomorrow. I don't have, 40 years worth of a spiritual bank account I got today. But there's 9 steps that come after step 12, and I got $10. Certainly my hope for you and for myself, or how I hold that accountable or myself accountable to that, is that last dollar pays for the humility to remember that I didn't do it. If my spiritual house is, or my spiritual condition is based upon how good and saintly I am, I'm fucked. I'm not going to get there. I'm not a saintly guy, just in case those of you that don't know me. Because anytime I forget that I can't make it through that day on my own, again, my life becomes a crapshoot. I remember my life as a crapshoot. It was not good. I did not like it. So that last dollar, for me, is paid in saying thank you, in remembering that I didn't do it. But always remember this. I have not experienced this as a white-knuckle program. I am guaranteed to make it through every single day, provided I do the things that I talked about before. Provided I take that spiritual $10. I don't get to use that for whatever I want. I get to use it for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That I remember the humility that this is what I am. I sit in a room, an equal amongst equals. I'm not the smartest one in the room. Life is not going to go my way, always, or any way that I think it should go. My opinion is not any better than anybody else's. And I have a responsibility to everybody else in the human race to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is that there is a God and I'm not it. Anytime I forget those things and think that I have the capacity to do, to change, to be better, to fulfill this goal, that doesn't mean, we all know. I hope you understand that there's normal things in life that you have to do. You have to plan. I didn't all of a sudden one day retire and have nothing. I made plans. One of the amazing things when it comes to this spiritual power that's given from the outside, I have met old-timers through 43 years. Some of them were people that were decent members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you could sit down and talk to them. And I've met people that were old-timers and just thought that they were God's gift, because they somehow forgotten. I remember one guy here in Milwaukee, in the Milwaukee area, who used to refer to himself in the third person. When I know the truth about myself, it gets very, very difficult for me to sit in judgment of anybody else. I know who and what I am. I also have learned with that spiritual power that all that stuff that so many of us hide, that we think that if nobody else knows, those become our buttons that people push. And just like the finding strength through weakness, when we admit we're powerless, because all of a sudden that's when we find the power, or the power is given to us, to not have to drink alcohol. And it's the same with all those other things. That's not to say that I certainly don't go around and tell you all the things that are wrong with me, mostly because nobody wants to hear, and it would take too fucking long. But once I know them, they're no longer a sore spot for me. What's the worst that you can do? You walked into the room without your pants zipped, and guess what? At 65, I do that on a fairly regular basis now. So, really, truly, when you start to look at, if you look at yourself realistically, and you start to see other people realistically, there's just not that much. The other thing that, as a result of the spiritual power, every emotional crisis that happens to me is not an extinction level event. Now, we're all at different places. I understand that, and I hope you understand that. Just because I tell you that does not mean, for those of you that are still experiencing every emotional turmoil as an extinction level event, that you will stop just because I said that. We all learn. There were many times throughout my life where every emotional turmoil was an extinction level event and I overreacted to it. I don't have to. Amazingly, the other thing that I've learned in that spiritual power being given on a daily basis is that if I don't do anything, about 98% of the world just fixes itself. Amazingly, it really did not need my help at all. I have found a tremendous value in just shutting up. Everybody has an opinion, and most people don't want to hear mine. So I'm fine with that. There are things that I do. Even though I am given this spiritual power, and I hope that that last dollar pays for the humility to be able to do that again tomorrow, I do have responsibilities. It is my responsibility to harmoniously cooperate with my higher power. I have to take those $10 and I actually have to use them. That means I have to act. I have to act appropriately. That's my responsibility. I'm now a grown-up. I have to act. The beauty of it is that as time has gone on, I have become much more of an actor in my life and not a reactor to my life. I make those decisions. I cannot change the way that I think. I cannot change the way that I feel. But a few years ago, as an example of what I think is that harmonious cooperation, I was working for the Department of Military Affairs, and I spent a lot of windshield time going from armory to armory. And I don't know about you, but occasionally, people will drive incorrectly. And I would have reactions to that. And I really didn't like the reactions that went on in my head. I mean, most of it, I was in a government vehicle, so there was a lot of things I didn't do. But there was this stuff that went on in my head. And, you know, even I get sick of hearing that shit in my own head. I can't change the way that I think, but I can change the words that I said to myself. That part I can do. So instead of commenting on people's appearances or this, that, or the other thing in my head, I started saying, I don't really like the way this person acts. I found that changing the words of the conversation made it much more comfortable in my head to have to drive around with other human beings that did not act appropriately according to my standards, which nobody cares about anyway, but, you know. It made it easier. That was what I could do. And I think that is my responsibility. That's part of the way that I spend my dollar on humility. I get sick of having to listen to myself on a fairly regular basis. I've been listening to it for 65 years. The other thing I'd like to tell you about, or the other thing I'd like to talk about a little bit, is knowledge. One of the things alcoholics like, myself included. Remember, I am my main example. For all this wasn't you guys, it was me. I'm the one that lived in my head. I'm the one that's lived my life. I'm my main example of what I understand about you. And one of the things that's been fantastic over the years in Racine is, people talk and want to learn and gain knowledge about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was not always true in this town. But if you're an alcoholic like me, knowledge means power. I'm going to figure out what it does, then I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't know anything, because that would just be disingenuous. I know lots of shit. And you have to understand that my knowing lots of shit doesn't do anything for my sobriety. It does not keep me sober. It will not keep me sober. It is not something that I hang my hat on as a reliable vehicle to stay sober. What keeps me sober is the actions, steps 4 through 12, every day, all the time, forever and ever, without end. That's what keeps me sober. By making that decision to turn my will and my life over. Any knowledge that I have is for you. Any knowledge you have is for somebody else. Knowledge isn't for you. Knowledge is so that you can readily and with something to say and to share, step into those opportunities every time a higher power presents them to you to share the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Find a slightly better way to talk to that person about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. to talk about how it's okay to not know who or what your higher power is and just do it and still stay sober. To talk about the fact that anybody and everybody can stay sober if they daily make the decision to turn their will and their life over to the care of God as humans. And anybody can do it. You don't have to know shit. And if you do, you better use it responsibly, but it's for other people, it's not for me. And although, there are lots of speakers that are funny, I'm not that funny. I do not have an exciting story. I would have to lie and make shit up if I wanted to entertain you with that story. And I have tried to tell it before, just ask Chris, I suck. But I think there's a reason, because I've pondered it. I've pondered it for a lot of years. We don't get a chance, we don't get that. Using myself as an example and talking to so many people over the years, when we talk about getting well, my impression is, if it's like me, I want to get to a place where things calm down inside and I get to cruise. All of this stuff comes naturally to me and I just do it, and the bluebird of happiness flies about me, like the old Disney movies with Snow White, and rainbows shoot out my ass, and it's wonderful. And it's not. Any of us that have stayed sober for any length of time know that. But one of the things that happens as a result of this program, those 9 steps, well, all 12, on a daily basis, a moment-to-moment basis, every day, without end, I get to participate in my life. I don't get to cruise. I don't get to slide. I don't get to relax. But I do get to participate in something I never participated in before. See, I was trapped in the bondage of self. I was forced to live that way. I had no choice. Groundhog's Day, every day, forever and ever, without end. And there was nothing I could do. I'm powerless to change that, but I am given the power to harmoniously cooperate with my higher power, and hence I get to participate in my life. I think that's a fantastic gift. I don't get to control my life, but I get to participate. I think that's true of my participation in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Without a long discussion, and we're just talking about my opinion, I think that Alcoholics Anonymous always sits on a daily basis on a razor's edge of going extinct, just like the Washingtonians. Oh, it wouldn't be quick. It wouldn't be like flipping a switch. It would be a long, drawn-out process. And the only way that, in my opinion, that Alcoholics Anonymous will ever end is from the inside out, through ignorance and apathy. I don't know and I don't care. I also have that opportunity to participate in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, to connect with the people that started the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the people that are here now, and the people that will come in the future. I have a responsibility. There's that. At least for me, there's that word again. I have a responsibility to participate in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous if I would like the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to continue on. So I think that opportunity and that unsexy, day by day, how free do I want to be, but doing the steps every single day, which allows my higher power to come in and do for me what I cannot do, is an opportunity to participate. An opportunity to learn is an opportunity to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can tell you how you get knowledge, because knowledge is for other people, it's not for me. It's by stepping through those doors of opportunity. The scarier the door of opportunity, the more knowledge you have to gain. If you avoid the opportunities, you avoid the knowledge. There is no amount of meetings, book studies, or anything else that you can do. It only comes through action. At least that's been my experience with it. I'm not well. I don't think I'll ever be well. I don't think I'll ever be able to cruise. I have to participate every single day. And I think that's the advantage of that spiritual power that's given to me. That last dollar that I pay through humility. The knowledge. I will tell you that the one benefit it is I resist a whole lot less. Because I know that resistance is futile. There's either do or don't do. And I know what happens when you don't do. I'm liking the do better. And after we repeat or after we say the Serenity Prayer on Wednesdays, Chris always goes someday or whatever it is. What do you say at the end of that? Eventually, well, I'll tell you. I'm going to break the secret of the Serenity Prayer for you. I'm going to spoil it. It's me. The only thing that I have ever had anything to do and can do anything and will ever do anything is my behaviors and my words. That's the only thing. Now, I can take actions to try to make the world a better place, but I have no control over how they work out. That entire Serenity Prayer, just like the entire taking self-inventory, just like the working the steps, just like the character defects, they're all mine. The whole Serenity Prayer is about what I do and what I say, because that's the only thing that I have. So I'd like to say I'm sorry that I spoil it for you, but I'm not. Other than that, I think I might be done now.